Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. In this week's show we'll look at the return of Christchurch's CTV and cite some pirates who have an eye on the election. But first, Sam Mulgrew has some numbers from a week that spanned the spectrum of news.
The climax has come and gone. Years of women's magazine foreplay, further trivialising the trivial, came to a head with the marriage of Prince William and Catherine Middleton, as reported in 7 million news stories on the day before the event. 6,500 accredited media people were in London, with 36 networks crammed into one cable-filled block. More than 50 cameras were inside Westminster Abbey, as well as in countless places around London. And about the same percentage of the population watched our familiar faces as saw Charles and Diana marry in 1981. TV1 attracted 39% more viewers overall than TV3, and on both channels, almost 2/3 of the viewers were female. On the day, there were more than 2.5 million Twitter mentions, and 55% of those were from the Republican United States. Almost 23 million Americans watched the wedding on TV, but double that saw the president announcing the death of Osama bin Laden. More than 9.5 years and 2 massive wars since 9/11, the Americans got their man. They photographed the body and consigned him to an oceanic grave. A White House insider first confirmed the news on Twitter 17 minutes before the first news network, Fox, with assorted anti-Obama propaganda.
President Obama is in fact dead.
Then began one of Twitter's biggest moments. This was the highest sustained rate of tweets ever, averaging 3,000 tweets per second for 3.5 hours.
Sam Mulgrew there. The human cost for the Canterbury regional broadcaster CTV in February's earthquake was unfathomable. 16 of the station staff died when its building collapsed. But there were also practical and professional costs. Archives and resources were lost too. But the station is back on air and help has flowed in. After a dinner hosted by New Zealand producers at the recent TV trade show in Cannes, 14 international companies, including Survivor creator Mark Burnett Productions, have offered free programming. Local firms have pitched in too, with 200 hours of free programming and help getting to air. And Maori Television is providing 4 hours daily of national broadcast time. We sent Jose Barbosa south to see how it was done on the ground.
You've just seen the moments of terror as a deadly quake hit Canterbury. This was the feared big one we've been warned about. A major focus of rescue efforts right now is the 7-storey building that's home to Christchurch's regional television station, CTV.
The channel that's done so much to help Canterbury heal was today the victim of its latest quake.
Well, what we got out, we had 2 crews out on jobs. They were both, in effect, news crews. So what we saved were 2 cars, 2 cameras, 2 tripods, and about 4 microphones. They didn't even have a light kit with them.
Rightio. Ready?
Yep. This is the studio, which something like about 10 weeks ago was a very small storeroom with a whole lot of stuff which wasn't needed by the mainland press, our sister company.
Welcome back to City Life.
We've borrowed some lights because we lost everything, obviously, and we've got a couple of field cameras which we're using at this stage.
To run a live show between the control room and the studio, you need, let's say, 6 people. Of that 6 people, we have 4 operational staff. So we're getting help from other people who have worked for us before, and somehow we'll just get it up and running.
This is the control room. As you can see, still in work in progress, and these wonderful people are just building out of nothing.
Just getting equipment, it's been difficult because a lot of it's been coming from Japan, and with the awful things that went on there, obviously everything's delayed, and you know, I think we're building a channel that you would really often take 9 months to a year to get ready, and we're trying to do that in, say, about 6 weeks.
So editing booth, there's a couple of those. Pretty new sort of gear, and we've got 2 editors. everybody has to do more than one job because of the necessity, really. Welcome to CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
People of Canterbury really need to know what's going on. They need to know what's happening with Portaloos, you know, the last silt collection is when, all that sort of thing. And they really needed, I think, to be a channel out there that gave them all the information and represented how they were feeling. So we felt that we needed to encourage Canterbury to rebuild by coming back on as quickly as we could. And that has been a mammoth task.
We had to get up on Sky somehow, or satellite. And Married TV, some said, well, they don't broadcast in the morning or early afternoon. Perhaps we should talk to them. We went to talk to them and they were fantastic and have offered us 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and also 6 hours on Saturday and Sunday.
Canterbury is still in recovery, and that's why we have CTV's City Life.
We've had to approach various different production companies and just say, you know, have you got anything that you might be able to let us use just to get the channel up and running again until, obviously we're making some of our own shows, but that's not enough to fill a 24-hour station. Most of our library went down with the building, so we had 20 years worth of programming, which I didn't have at my disposal to play.
We've been put through an awful lot with aftershocks. It is accumulative, the stress factor. You watch the person beside you that you're working with. How are they reacting? Are you asking too much? Should you help them? There is a great team spirit.
It's that sort of pioneering spirit, and so yes, exhilarating, exciting, and often terrifying.
It was something that we felt we all wanted to do, and that we can do. It's a big challenge, but it's good, and it's nice to do it for the people that we've lost.
I'm joined now by CTV reporter Emily Cooper, who survived the quake because she was out on the job with one of those cameras at the time, and Christchurch screen producer Veronica McCarthy of Power Productions, who is making a documentary about the earthquakes. Welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Emily, it must be gratifying to see the level of support that's flooding in. I presume it makes you feel a little less alone.
Oh, it's been amazing. The support we've received, not just in terms of programming, internationally and nationally, has just been overwhelming, and it's, yeah.
You've been back on the job for weeks, haven't you? Although CTV only started its full programming slate this week, you've been broadcasting news?
Yes, news was the first program to go to air, so we've been working on that. We just thought, you know, it's important to tell people in Canterbury what's going on, and as the other networks backed off, we thought it was important to have a regional news up and running, so we tried to get that back on air as soon as we could. Was there any doubt in your mind ever that you would go back and do that? Well, obviously in the initial first weeks, we weren't thinking we could have lost our jobs, we were thinking of our friends, but I mean, from the get-go, we always wanted to get things back up and running, and we have all worked so hard to do that, and like I said, it was just important for us to do it, for our friends that we've lost and for the people of Canterbury. So what is work for you at the moment? What's a typical day like for you? Well, we've all sort of taken on 3 different jobs, so it's pretty intense. I do my regular researching, going out, getting a story, cameraman, we shoot it, come back, script write, and the office is tiny, and we've got limited resources, as you can imagine, and we're just doing the best we can. I imagine it's been awful personally, but how's it been for you professionally? Because you're not long out of journalism school, are you? No, I finished at Canterbury at the end of the year, so this is my first job out of uni. Obviously, being put out there has been the best learning experience, but I just had the best teacher in Sam Gibb. He was our news producer, so I worked at CTV prior to the earthquake with him and learnt so much from him, and I've taken what he's taught me and I'm trying to do the best possible news I can for him, because I want to do it for him, and he's just taught me so much. Is it a maturing experience? You've had to grow up pretty quick into the job? Yeah, and I think as I said, the experience that I've got from this has been invaluable, not just because we're understaffed, but because of the situation we've been put in. Veronica, you've, I gather, have both helped CTV and been supported yourselves in what you're doing.
Yes, that's right. Power Productions is making a documentary on the earthquake. We originally started after the first earthquake in September, thinking that was the big one, and lucky nobody died, so great story. And then the second one struck, and immediately we proposed to Prime and also to New Zealand On Air that we had to make this documentary include the big earthquake, because people were dying and it was far, far worse than the first one by everyone's account. And New Zealand On Air and Prime quickly agreed, and we are now making a 2-hour special which includes both documentaries, and obviously we are following stories from the first one, and they have a long tail over the second one, right through to when we deliver for On Air.
Small hitch there, of course. You lost your office in the second quake.
We lost 2 offices. Right. We had an office in the fabulous Music Centre, and we had an office in the gorgeous Arts Centre, both heritage buildings, and both collapsed, both in the red zone. So we weren't allowed into our offices for 6 weeks. And that was crazy for us, because we had all this fantastic footage, plus other documentaries and series that we have been working on. Backups, we did 2 backups, 1 in each office. And, so you need a backup for the backup.
So were you afraid that you'd lost the lot?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know what state the offices were in, and plus we had our edit suite in there. So it was a really nerve-wracking time for us. All of our database, all of our research, all of our contacts, I mean, everything was there, and it was a really terrifying time for us. Plus, our production manager, Nikki Edwards, was a long-term member of CTV, and she attended and said goodbye to 9 of her colleagues. So, that was it was a really, really sad time for us. Plus, my business partner Virginia and myself, both of our houses were badly damaged. It was just totally full on.
So where are you working from now? Do you actually have a proper office?
No, we don't. No. We're working from Nikki's spare bedroom, and that's really cosy, tiny room. And Nikki's kind of working from almost a wardrobe. And Virginia and I work from our homes, and we do internet cafes, and we have production meetings at cafes where they're open. And we go to this cafe, no, it's not open. We go to that one. So there's a lot of communicating on the telephone and Skype, and the cell phone bills are enormous.
Right. Emily, you must be striking exactly those kinds of practical difficulties. Just things that should be easy actually aren't.
Yeah, and it's hard not to think about it. I mean, it goes to the extent you think, if Sam was here, how much easier things would be, and then you go to, well, if we had an auto cue, it would be so much easier. Like, it's things like that, and it does get to you, and it makes you realise a lot more. It reminds you every day.
Obviously, there are some very serious issues, particularly with the eastern suburbs, and you're covering those. Do you feel you also have to have some uplifting stories as well, that people actually want to smile sometimes?
Oh, definitely. I mean, as with any news, we try to cover everything we can, positive and the stuff that people need to know. But it's not just news that's trying to cover that sort of thing. Sasha will be introducing a new show, Onwards and Upwards, about the rebuild, and looking at positive rebuilds, and telling people that there is a future.
Have you had the sense that people really want to tell their stories? Because that's certainly what came through at a distance. Via the internet, everyone seemed to have a story they wanted to tell.
Yeah, one of our cameramen said, if you throw a stone in Christchurch, you'll hit a story. And everyone does have a story, whether they want to tell it or not.
Does the earthquake and the recovery dominate the news agenda for you? I mean, are there other stories to tell?
Well, we are the Recovery Channel, and we do aim to inform people on the rebuild and the earthquake. But there's still other stories out there we try and put in anything we think is important, not to do with the earthquake as well.
Veronica, you've had the unusual experience of interviewing someone, thinking that was the final interview, about the first quake, and you've been going back to them, I understand.
Yes, we have. There's fascinating stories, and those people again thought that they had struck the worst, and particularly families that we are covering in the eastern suburbs, and Bexley in particular, one of the worst hit areas in Christchurch. One of our families moved out, then moved back into their house. They decided they could live in it and rebuild. And then the second time it happened, liquefaction, liquid sludge, you know, up to past their windowsills. They could easily reach the under eaves of their home, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just heartbreaking, you know, worms crawling through the cracks in the floor, and they've just had to leave. It's terrible, it's heartbreaking, and they're a young couple that worked really hard to get the home of their dreams. All of that, it's really sad.
We get to see the documentaries February 22nd, the anniversary next year.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'll look forward to that, and thank you both of us for joining us, and best of luck.
Thanks for having
Cheers.
us. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Cooper and Veronica McCarthy. And after the break, pirates on the horizon. Thank you.